Hello, and we are so excited to spend some time with you today. I don't know about all of you, but it was a very rude awakening when I went from these really powerful in-person meetings to the pandemic and becoming completely virtual. And as we have moved beyond that, and now we are entering back into some in-person, some virtual, some hybrid, most of us are discovering that it doesn't work well to just do what we did in person and just slam it online. And today I'm really excited to spend time with Kimberly and Kathy with Everything Webinar. They are experts in this space, and they're going to share with you some of the just important brain science and approaches that will really help you have much more impact in your world and in your business. So Kimberly and Kathy, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you, Shellen.
Thank you, Shellen, for having us. I'm so honored to be here with you. I love your broadcast and your followers, and this is just such an amazing opportunity. Thank you.
Oh, my pleasure. Well, I know that for so many of us that are in the community, we spend a lot of time presenting, and we're learning these, tips and tricks along the way and struggling to really put it all together now that this virtual environment is really permanent. I believe that it's going to, remain, and we have this incredible opportunity to expand our impact. But Kimberly, why don't you tell us a little bit about your background and what inspired you to make the leap from your corporate career into your entrepreneurial journey?
Well, let's see. Do you have about 12 hours for
I
me
do.
to explain that? No, I'm kidding. Well, that's a great question. And I love sharing with folks that we are almost 20 years old as a woman-owned business. And I did not jump into being a master trainer in the virtual space because of COVID. So I've actually started the company, like I said, almost 20 years ago. And it was really just out of sheer desperation. Honestly, I was a single mom and I was commuting about 2.5 hours per day. This was in California, and I was working for WebEx. So I have a little bit of a virtual collaboration background and really grew up in the WebEx culture before WebEx became Cisco WebEx. And I wanted to work from home for just 2 days per week. And HR at WebEx said, sorry, we don't allow this at that point in time. Can you imagine that? Telling somebody that remote work is not available when you're working for a virtual collaboration company. True story. So I prayed and prayed and prayed for a door to be opened for me to be able to start a small business and have a little bit more time at home with my baby girl. I just had one girl at that point. And the doors magically opened. I had right away 2 clients that loved my work and asked if they could hire me as a contractor. And I said yes. And here we are all these years later.
Amazing. That's a great journey. And Kathy, you more recently joined the Everything Webinar team. And I was really excited I was a little surprised actually when I saw your announcement on LinkedIn, because you have been a longtime business owner and very successful in the employee benefit space, which is how I got to know you. And I was fascinated by what was happening and what would inspire this change. So can you share just a little bit about your background and what inspired your shift and joining the Everything Webinar team, and kind of how your values align with the mission of the company?
Well, Shellen, it is kind of interesting. I mean, going from the benefits world to this kind of a world, a virtual world completely, is very different for me. But I was in benefits for a long, long time, and I owned my own business, and I thoroughly enjoyed working with my business clients, creating solutions for them and educating their employees on benefits. What I would have loved, well, because of 2020, then we all had to go virtual, but what I would have really appreciated is Kimberly's training programs. That would have helped me and my business so much. It would have made things so much more comfortable. And I agree with you. Virtual is not going away. So when I learned about this, Kimberly and I met a few years ago. And when I learned more about it and spent time with her, I just thought, oh my gosh, everyone needs to know about this. So that's why I'm here. I want to share as much as I can with whoever will listen.
Yeah, I love, and I think your journey is such a valuable one because you've really been in this situation, both as a business owner, but working with hundreds of business owners who are trying to communicate really challenging, sometimes difficult, complex information to employees that may be at one location or around the country or even internationally. So that personal experience and having these solutions makes it, you have, so much credibility, and it's exciting to be able to share that. Kimberly, I just think this concept is fascinating. You talk a lot about taking your 2D self and creating it 3D in a virtual world. Can you share more about that, just that whole concept?
Could I just go backwards a couple of sentences and say something about Kathy?
Of course.
I really just want for people to know that we are just grateful as a team to have her choose this small business after having such an amazing career. For Kathy to choose us is it really just means everything and really helps our company grow to the next level with somebody like Kathy, who's got all this amazing experience. She doesn't have to be here. She's already had this career that a lot of people would probably be quite envious of, let's say admirous of. And I just want for people to know that these are the types of talent that we bring into everything webinar. And if you're interacting with somebody at EDub, it's probably going to be Kathy. So that's just one more reason to stay tuned as we finish the journey today.
Excellent. I love it. So go ahead. Well, I was going to say this kind of goes into your expertise around brain science as well. I think sometimes we think of sort of virtual excellence about technology and backgrounds and lighting and all the things. You really bring such an expertise around brain science and what we can do in this virtual world, in addition to all of those elements that we may be more familiar with.
Yes. Well, I'm glad that you brought that up. So I have been teaching presentation skills from the stage for more than 20 years. I've worked for a lot of the big tech companies, and I've been involved in that presentation skills, soft skills training world for a very, very, very long time. Let's just say almost 30 years, a long time. But 3 years ago, I decided to gain a neurolinguistics coach practitioner certification. Now, that was not because I wanted to go and hang a shingle downtown here in the little small town that I live in. It was because I wanted brain science and facts for how people present and how we communicate from a human behavioral science perspective. The brain is just fascinating to me. And, that seems probably cliche because, well, most of us that are here have a brain, but we don't understand the language of the brain. So the presentation skills training programs have evolved from something that was more like Kimberly's conjecture. I can teach you to stand on stage and look at the audience and square your shoulders and create that safe zone for communication, breathe from your diaphragm, all of the typical the details that we teach or have been teaching for years and years and years, but I didn't have the brain science behind it. Now I can say to you, there's a specific reason that is related to virtual cognitive load, for example, and that's why we maintain eye contact with the camera, or that's why we use a particular lighting setup when we're presenting virtually.
It's fascinating. It's really fascinating. And I know, Kathy, one of the ways that you approach prospective clients or when they reach out and are interested in learning more is just a really simple question of what frustrates you about your virtual meetings. Mm-hmm. And I love that because it just really gets to the heart of what's specific to that person. But what are the most common pain points that you're hearing about?
Well, one of them is time management. if you think about it, how many times have you been in a virtual meeting where it's disorganized, it doesn't start on time, people are talking over people? I mean, there's a lot of wasted time during that meeting. As a participant in something like that, I would feel like the presenter wasn't fully prepared, and also maybe wasn't thinking about my time, because I'm on a time constraint too. And if you want me to be with you and work with you, you have to think about that as well. So another one would be distractions. It could be your dog barking, it could be the Amazon truck driving by, the baby's crying, whatever it is. If the presenter doesn't know how to bring the audience back into the meeting quickly, then the audience is going to lose whatever was said in that moment. And then the last one, it's kind of funny that I will say, is I never really noticed it before, but now that I've been with Kimberly for a little while, it's a big pet peeve of hers. And now I have realized that it is annoying to look at everybody's nose. And so she has
Can I
a
just
hot
do this
bag.
live, Shellen?
Yes,
Can I do this
please.
live? Okay. Because I'm the queen of sass when it comes to the nose and end the nose madness. So I'm just moving my computer. Oftentimes people are logging in from a laptop on their desk. And this is how we see people log in. So we talk very much about end the nose madness, because this is what your audience sees when they log in, is what's going on up your nose. So we do these live, by the way. We do a lot of role play in our training programs, and they're fun. So I'm just grabbing a little crate that I have here. This does not have to be expensive to upgrade your virtual office. And for me, I'm a tall girl, so I just take the computer and I reposition it just about 8 inches higher than it was before just a moment ago. And then I just play with the video feed to make sure that it's at a good angle. And I do look away from the camera for a moment. I look at myself just to be sure that everything looks kosher. And there we go. It takes less than 5 seconds to gain that perfect angle by which to engage with your audience and achieve the highest level of eye contact.
But what's funny is, since you told me about that, I see it a lot. I didn't see it that much before, but now I do. And so, and you're right, it is a distraction. So that's a funny thing. So
yeah. Well, and it's an easy thing to do as well, and not even realize how much more it's more you project more confidence. There is a huge difference. I noticed one this morning was an interview, and it was with a really successful leader, and there was something and the interviewer had this kind of eye contact, but the person he was interviewing, that laptop was down on the desk, and he was really tall, and it was not only a little distracting, but it creates some really difficult shadows for those of us who are looking.
Call me, whoever that was. Call me.
Yeah, right.
Well, and Kimberly and Kathy, you gave me the opportunity to experience this virtual audit that you do. And one thing that I didn't realize that I did, and I use my hands a lot, and in person it works, but when you're on camera, I didn't realize how often I was creating these kind of creepy hands, and that it's important to have it back. And just getting used to not doing that anymore. I look back at some of the prior videos, and it's those small things you may not even realize that you're doing that have a big impact.
Well, it's a good point, because I work with some absolutely fabulous rock star presenters when they present from the stage, get some of those folks behind the camera, and they haven't learned to adapt those in-person skills to the virtual environment. And that is one of the training programs that we offer. So thanks for bringing that up.
Well, absolutely. And if you think about it, we all pivoted in 2020. I never even gave that a thought in 2020. All I was trying to do was make sure the camera worked and my presentation was working. And so, we've gone 4 years now, and there's still a lot of training to be had.
Well, Shellen, how long had you been a broadcaster before you went through the group virtual office audit?
About 1.5 years. So I'd been doing a weekly show for about a 1.5 years, and went from in-person workshops and training and sales. And Kathy has been subjected to a number of them. And that move to being virtual was one element where you could plan it, but being live was a whole nother situation, or the
Right.
things that could go wrong when you're live and streaming versus if you're having a workshop and people need to pop off or on, it's different than when you're live. And just trying to figure it out was an expensive situation. I wish I had known about the training. I watched some videos and tried to piece it together, but I certainly appreciated that within a very consolidated amount of time, it's like, here's all the things you just need to do and tweak and what you use and you're golden. It made it really simple.
Well,
so
yes, and thank you for that testimonial, because I hear all the time, every single day, still 3 years after the start of COVID and everybody being forced into this virtual world or this hybrid world. Kimberly, we're clicking a button and we're hoping for the best. Like Kathy mentioned, there is no structure for time management, for example. So we have a program that is time management for virtual leaders. And we're very, very strict with the way that we structure our team meetings, our team events, our presentations. It's very structured. And 30 minutes, 7 steps, you can learn what has taken me essentially 25 years to piece together. Like you said, you can go out to YouTube or listen to, folks on LinkedIn, but there isn't one comprehensive repository like we offer to the world. So that's a virtual office audit. There's also a group virtual office audit. And now we have the AI version of the office audit. So if you don't want to speak to a human, you don't have to.
Well, it's so fascinating. I think the AI AI has been around for a long time, but our ability to make it accessible and work with it like everyday people is very new. I think it's making the virtual meeting and video even more important because it's a little hard to know right now what's real, what's AI. And when you can do a virtual meeting, you can really create that trust factor that is needed for clients and sales. And this is a great way to do it.
Yes.
Now, maybe you could say a little bit about eye contact. You mentioned it in terms of brain science, but I'd say this is the one thing that I'm still struggling with. Yes, Kathy.
I don't mean to interrupt, but
yeah,
I'm going to go with your little theme here. And that is every time anyone takes one of Kimberly's virtual office audits, because I had one too, that's how we met and she trained me. The aha moment that I had, and I just did a bad thing with my hands, I'm sorry, was exactly what Shellen just said. And it is about the best way to connect with your audience is not looking at their picture on the computer, because I'm looking down. That's what you see. It's about looking in the camera. And if I'm looking as the presenter, looking in the camera to the audience feels there's a connection there because they're looking at me. They're not looking at something else. And that was huge for me. And I used that. Luckily, I met her while I was still in benefits. I used that while I was doing my employee meetings. And I have to tell you, I feel like it made a difference in the meetings that I did with her knowledge. So anyway, I had to just say my little aha moment.
Absolutely.
Well, and we can demonstrate it if I'm speaking to you, Kathy, and Shellen specifically, or anybody else that is in the audience, and I'm speaking to you like this, you feel a certain level of connection. Maybe it's not the same as in person, but if we were in person and I was looking off to the side, if I was watching myself or if I was looking at my shoes, I am not going to make you feel like you're part of the conversation. And that should happen instantly for you. You should have already had that moment where you felt like she's not looking at me. You have a thought, and that makes your brain work that much harder. And we want our presentations to essentially be mind mapped so that they're easy for the audience. They know what the expectations are right from the beginning. And we want them to feel like they are the most important thing in that conversation, because you are. If we are taking our time to communicate with each other, we're not going to be communicating like this. And then what happens with your brain, like Kathy was mentioning earlier, we do a really good job of teaching people to gain, maintain, and regain virtual attention. And we use principles of adult learning theory to do that. And I've been studying principles of adult learning theory for years. So I have a lot to say about that. But you're making people, you're not really showing empathy when you are speaking to people, and people won't tell you that, and they won't know what they're thinking about it necessarily unless they're trained in those thought paths like we are in neurolinguistics. So you have something called task switching and task flipping, and there is actually a link. I don't have it here with me at the moment, but there's a link where you can test yourself to see what your recovery time is. So if you're in a virtual meeting and I lose you, I need to know how long it's going to take to regain that virtual attention. And we all do it, folks. We are adult learners and we squirrel away very quickly. Don't do that now. If we've lost you, come back to me.
So how would you describe that, if you, especially if you have a group that maybe are higher level in, so it is awkward to tell them, put away your phone, and it's not a class that you're teaching, something like that, where you want to eliminate some of the distractions or the multitasking. What kind of advice do you have about how to manage that on the front end? Perhaps how to manage that just respectfully, especially if it's prospects or clients, somebody that you're really wanting to be very respectful of, and during the process, if you notice that people are multitasking or getting distracted, what are your advice that you give?
Yes, absolutely. We have something called a presentation structure template, which it's for sale on Amazon. Just look up my name or our company, Everything Webinar, and you can find it. It teaches you the exact structure to use for virtual presentations so you don't have that awkwardness. First of all, if I coach on the executive level, and I coach only in the C-suite now, I have other coaches that work for me that will coach mid-level and entry level. But if we're working in a C-suite, for example, we teach folks, and everybody feels uncomfortable with this in the beginning. It doesn't matter what your title is. You start to think a different way about how you present yourself and how you manage that meeting from the very beginning. And it's very respectful to show a slide or just use your words that says, hello, good morning, we're going to start the meeting. What I'd like to share with you is that we'll be using the chat box. Take a moment to find the chat box and I'll show you how to use it. If you want an adult to do something in a meeting to be part of it, you have to teach them how to do it right from the very, very beginning. And then you might show a slide that says we have ground rules for this meeting. The ground rules are whatever they might be for you. For me, I like to share with people that it's a requirement for the camera to be turned on. That's usually an expectation that I set well in advance, but I like to remind people that it enhances their experience as well as mine. And we teach people to speak about the ground rules, such as turn off all of your ringers and dingers. Hey, everybody, this is a best practice that we use in our organization. We just ask everybody to nicely turn off their ringers and dingers so that the distractions are actually minimized. And whatever other ground rules are important to you, some teams like to say that we have strict rules around time management, and this is part of what we teach in time management. Our 30-minute meetings are now 25 minutes, and our 60-minute meetings are now 55 minutes, because our 2D selves are now time travelers. And we've been rolling this out as an organization with other organizations across the United States for about 4 years now. Once I have executive sponsorship for this new communication protocol, it's easy to implement. So I know I kind of scrolled off in a couple of different areas, but we have this presentation structure template, and we have a new way. We have talk tracks that we help you build that confidence. So when you are the leader of the meeting, you know exactly what to say. And it starts to feel very comfortable with you once we role play just a little bit. It doesn't take very much time.
Yeah, perfect. And I know, so Kathy, you have had this in a very real way of doing presentations in a variety of locations. So I'm wondering if you could share a little bit about best practices if you are going virtual when it's not an environment that you can control and set up ahead of time, of what are the things you should bring with you, how do you best set that up if you're going virtual from a location that you don't control?
That is really a Kimberly question.
Perfect.
Well, so Kathy, you do a great job when you are moving from location to location with just a couple of things. I always recommend that people carry a little ring light with them. And this is one of the miniature ones. And I carry all the tech with me, by the way. So if we're on your campus, I bring all the microphones and all the lights and give you all the different options. But just the teeny tiny little ring light here, and I'm pretty sure these are still about $12 or so on Amazon. And I'll just demonstrate this live. I'll just put this over the top of the eye of the computer camera. So that is one piece of equipment that I don't ever leave home without, ever. And we just tested these for a client the other day, and we're getting 90 minutes out of the ring lights now, which is fantastic. So you see how teeny tiny it is. It just fits in your to-go bag. If you need a little bit more lighting, we've got other lights as well. Like this one here is just a tiny bit bigger. Can see that. You might need a little bit more light. And then there are a lot of, let me see where excuse me just for one moment here. My microphone decided to be a little bit wily. So a lot of these microphones, again, I travel with the tech, and these are not very expensive. This is the Samson line that I really love. This is a Meteor mic, and it actually, the legs fold up on it. So it just fits in the to-go bag really easily. That's another piece of equipment that I don't ever travel without. And if I find myself in an airport, for example, I actually have a little sign on the back of my computer that says event in progress, no noise, please. And maybe I'm a little bit overboard there, but I'll tell you, people don't interrupt me. So Kathy has been able to implement some of these same rituals that we use and we teach here at EDUB, and she's done a great job of it.
I do have my ring light, and I realized earlier in this meeting I didn't have it on. So now it's on, and it does make a difference.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah, and you're Kathy, you've got different lighting environments that you're in. So I'm just reaching over here to grab my ring light. I love to demonstrate these things live. So you can tell this is just one of the teeny tiny little lights, but look at how dark my face looks. And then when I click a button, it's completely the opposite. And let me just tell you, from a DNA perspective, humans communicate on a higher level with light. That may seem very cliche to some of you, but I'll tell you, most people don't think of it in those terms. How many people do you know that can communicate in the dark really, really well and be effective at it? Mm-hmm. Almost no one.
There's something about being very memorable as well, of just, especially with people that are, doing multiple interviews, or, interviewing different providers, or even for jobs. And it's just, how do you stand out? And it's all of those little things that in person you notice, the nonverbal, the smiles, the energy, and it's just more challenging in a virtual world. So are there other pieces of, other things that people can do to really bring out their authentic nature, their personality, to just be able to showcase more of who they are in this virtual world that it may not be as comfortable or easy to do?
Yes, that would be to book a one-on-one coaching session. Or the virtual office, 30 minutes, 7 steps. You both have gone through it. I mean, I have testimonials right here. It is well worth your time. And Shellen is going to give you a discount code at the end as well. So we talk about like I said, the lighting, the microphone, the angle of the camera, and how to set your video feed perfect for you and your unique space. So when we do a one-on-one audit, and it's the only audit, by the way, that you're not going to owe money at the end. So there's 7 steps, and we do talk about each one of these steps. In the group audit, we actually give you the brain science principles behind why we need to communicate with light. And we dig into what I call the geeky girl part of my job and talk about the brain science of light and lighting and how we speak. In the one-on-one audit, we give you the brain science principles, but we also focus on just you. We can provide an audit if you're in the airport, if you travel all the time. I've had to learn how to angle my camera when I'm in my seat on, usually, I shouldn't say Alaska Airlines, but I'm going to anyway. I gave a plug. Anyway, there are all types of environments that you might be presenting from. It could just be that you're presenting from home and your partner at home said, hey, you get the baby's nursery and you have to make the best of it. So you know what? We make the best of it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I'm curious, how do you, with most things, right? When a company is going to decide to spend their money and their time, put their team through a learning opportunity like this, they want to know, what is the ROI, or what is the impact of this kind of work? Could you describe a little bit more about how you work with clients, how you establish some, objectives that you're trying to accomplish, and how you help them really understand the ROI and then measure it?
Yes. Well, typically the conversations start with what is most frustrating. Kathy, would you agree with that? Most of the conversations that you've had have been along the lines of frustration.
Well, I mean, I kind of equate it to in the benefits world, I would have we call it oh shoot, I just lost my train of thought, but it's a meeting to find out what all your problems are. Oh, fact finding. That's right. So it was a fact finding meeting, and that would be it. You ask what your frustrations are, what you want to learn, what do you want to get out of it. So yeah, exactly the first thing.
Okay, so Shellen, back to your point, when I hear any level of frustration, no matter what it is, it could be from an individual, it could be on a corporate level, it could be on an executive level. No matter where you sit right now, if there is frustration for things like meetings are boring, I want to bang my head against the wall, or nobody's really paying attention, no one turns their video feed on, what is everybody doing in the meeting? Well, guess what, folks? That was just an hour of your company's time that I guarantee you somebody paid for. Well, who paid for that? So when we start having the conversations along the lines of productivity, then we can start to equate, this is just an example, if you have 10 employees in your company and you have 10 people that are consistently 5 minutes late to 6 virtual meetings per day, that's 5 minutes times 6 times whatever it is their salary is or their hourly rate is. That's where we can really hone in on the exact dollars. How much money are you losing by not engaging in this training? The training is no longer nice to have. It's a must have. Your sales teams, if they are not trained to sell in this particular platform, whether it's Zoom or WebEx or MS Teams, no matter what platform you're using, we use them all, I can assure you, and they're not structuring their sales calls properly and repurposing their content for the virtual environment instead of the in-person environment or just the sales call environment, you're making a huge mistake. So then we can start to track sales. We can start to track engagement rates. We can start to track employee retention rates with the internal trainings, for example. So we have lots of different ways to measure success for you, depending upon how you define success.
Well, Kimberly, what was your feedback from one of your clients regarding their sales?
Well, gosh, which one? I mean,
the one I'm thinking of is they put the sales team through your training.
Yes.
Well, no, they took a snapshot of what their training, of what their sals were.
Yes.
Then they did the training, and then they did a snapshot of what the sales were after that. And
Yes.
according to them, and what they told you is that they had a 15% rise in their sales.
Well, it was actually a little bit higher than that, but I like to be a tiny bit conservative. And that client was a snapshot. I think we talked about them about a year ago, and they are well beyond that point. They are rocking the virtual sales for that organization. And it's medical. I can't say the name, but it's a medical organization. So we started off right away after the training, within the first 30 days, a 15% increase in sales from their sales team, the folks that are selling virtually. You can call them, inside sales, virtual sales team. There's lots of different names that I hear these days right away. So that's pennies in your pocket for the organization, pennies in the pocket for your sales rep. That makes them happy. And it's a win-win all the way around. We see an increase in retention and engagement rates. Some of the clients that have come to us in the past have started at 15%. They're only 15% of their audiences are engaged. Those are the clients that have risen to up to 97% engagement rates just by restructuring the content that they've already created.
Wow, and so many people haven't yet incorporated some of the more active learning, engagement, rewards, like some of just, I guess, a little more of the more advanced techniques and options that are available today. Can you share a little bit more about what people might want to be thinking about in terms of what can they do above and beyond hopping on camera and having a meeting?
I would have to say executive sponsorship at a corporate level, and even if you're just a small corporation, integrating those conversations that speak about engagement and how we are engaging, how we're thinking about the content. What are those next steps to really elevate our organization above and beyond our competitors? So for me, it always starts with executive sponsorship. I've got to have somebody basically in a director level or above that believes in this training and believes in the proof. Once you take people through the training programs, and I'll tell you that they're not cumbersome and they're not difficult to deploy. So our little small business last year, or no, that was actually 2 years ago, we trained over 12,000 humans. And that's a lot of humans to train for a small business, but we are structured to meet your needs no matter the size of your organization. If we need to hire more staff, we do. We absolutely would like for you to start thinking about virtual meetings as part of your corporate culture. And I know a lot of companies are advertising themselves when they're hiring as remote first, and I love that. But what does remote first really mean to you? Have you given any thought to your team meetings and how those might be structured? Have you given any thought to reaching out to your teams and creating a team operating agreement? Team operating agreements are something we've used for years and years and years, originally created by Lee Johnson. That was the first template that I saw. We've been using those for clients for years. And with virtual teams, there's a little bit of a different dynamic that needs to be considered in growing a virtual team. Think about team building. We offer team building programs that are absolutely, I'll just say a hoot because they are. That's my high level technical term. So much fun to learn to build teams virtually, and you'd be surprised at how much trust you can build. So I could go on, but I think I should stop there. I told you just have to stop me, Shellen.
No. I think that passion is what makes this come to life, and is something I appreciate about both of you, of just this passion around what you do, the impact that it can have, and the difference that somebody can make so quickly. It's just almost immediate, the ability to elevate the performance and the impact in the virtual sense.
One of the things I would mention is what makes Kimberly different than some of the other trainers out there, which, there is some training out there, but it's different. It's not the same. Is she makes the training fun, and it's interactive. But to me, the why is super important, and the why is the brain science that she puts behind it. And I guess as an adult learner, I'm learning some of these new phrases. As an adult learner, I really like to know the why, because if I don't know it, then I'm not going to do it very well. And so that, to me, that's what stands out most, listening to her through the training process.
Well, one of the things that we've all experienced at some point through this window of time is the mishaps that can occur. I've had a couple doozies, and I'm sure, Kimberly, you've done, I think, over 15,000 meetings in your career. Do you have a couple of stories about something either kind of humorous or shocking that occurred, and sort of how to stay calm and resolve the situation and move forward and continue on with the meeting?
Yes, actually, one that happened just recently. I can't tell you how many inappropriate things I have seen on camera, but I would think that since we are a little bit past COVID, that there would be a little bit more attention given to the details for what's going on in your background. So just very, very recently, I was in a meeting where I was leading the meeting, but I was interviewing the person who was then starting to speak. She spoke for a couple of minutes, and then all of a sudden, whoop, there goes the bathroom door behind her, and her husband walks out of the bathroom, not knowing.
I was in that meeting too. It was hilarious, but super embarrassing for her. But, oh my gosh.
Oh my goodness. If
Wow.
you're that person, I love you. I adore you. I had to just share that story. I'm not sharing any names because that has happened so many times over the years, Shellen. So I like to really encourage people to shut down other applications that are running in the background. If you have those messenger apps that are running, sometimes they will overlay on top of a Zoom or a WebEx, for example, if you're screen sharing or you're desktop sharing. A lot of inappropriate messages have come across the screen in these training programs. So that's one of the funnier stories. I mean, we've got the kitties walking across the screen, or the baby in the background where mom is struggling between the camera and tending to the child and the microphone. And, those are all just distractions for people. And it takes everybody's brain a moment to reset. So we've got to be really, really mindful of those distractions. So I've got lots and lots of other stories, but those are some of the funniest ones.
I think my very favorite moment in the pandemic was the attorney that turned into a potato with lipstick, and she couldn't figure out how to turn, and she had to do a legal proceeding as a potato. That was like amazing to me.
Oh my gosh, that is just precious. I love it.
There's been some good ones, but it's certainly around, knowing your technology, practicing, doing that preparation. Are there some sort of words of wisdom that you have about that front end of just that preparation for meetings and how to really set yourself up for success?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, we have a full training program that is just on emergency preparedness for the virtual world. And some of the things that we talk about are, for example, if your ISP is disconnected randomly and you're presenting in a sales call that is going to win you that $1 million contract, you can't afford to not think through what happens if. So if that ISP were disconnected for some reason, we teach people how to switch back and forth between a hotspot on their phones. And we practice this live in the training program, so each person knows what their recovery time is. And Kathy, I think when we were testing this the other day for our own team, I think we were under 30 seconds where we practiced enough time and we were able to create hotspots to jump back into a meeting. That is just one area of emergency preparedness. The other items are just basic things like clear your cache and your cookies. If you're going into a really important meeting where you can't have any static or miscommunication between apps or programs, clear the cache, clear the cookies, reboot your computer. I can't tell you how many times either Zoom or WebEx, for example, sometimes hijacks audio from one service or the other. And it doesn't need to just be those two services. Sometimes it happens from iTunes. I'm sure you've experienced that before as well. Just be sure that your audio is plugged in to the service before you start the service. So make sure that your microphone, for example, is plugged into your computer before you start that Zoom meeting, if you want to use the microphone in Zoom. everybody's computer is configured different, so I can't speak to yours in particular, but I know that that happens to me, and I've been working in this industry for over 20 years. So I follow the same emergency protocols. There isn't anything magical about what I do. It's just that I have a checklist in front of me that says, is your power turned on? You know, is your computer plugged into the power? The other day, my own power cord was not plugged into the power strip. And I thought it was. I was rushing from meeting to meeting and I forgot to check it. Had a power issue. Thank God I had my little power pack here and I just plugged it in really quick. But if I don't follow my checklist, I find that I find that I am also a victim to some of those mishaps.
Yeah, that checklist is such a perfect thing to just follow every time. Then you're not having to remember, and just all of that psychological load instead of really being focused on being present. I know we had a conversation right before this about sometimes there's nerves and there's a lot on your mind. You might have been rushing from something else. What advice would you have around just sort of that mental process for the presenter to really get present, be focused on a successful experience?
Yes, love this, because this is something that we teach from the stage as well. So to the presenters that I teach, I always share that you've got to remember that is your responsibility to nurture the learning journey of the attendees. Your job is not to be focused on the sweat that's coming, you know, from the back of your neck. You've got to remember that you are in a leadership role, even if you're just in a team meeting or you're meeting, you know, with your family. Somebody is expecting you to be the leader in that meeting. So just understand and always remember, this was something that I was coached on 25 years ago. It's my responsibility, if I'm the leader of this meeting, to nurture your learning journey. That's a big responsibility. So I love to teach that from stage. And obviously there's more to mindset that comes to that. But the other thing I love to teach is just breathing in 4. You can do it with me. Breathe in 4 through your nose. 3, 4, and breathe out 6. 5, 6. And no, I do not want to be the voice on a meditation app or anything like that. but these are things that we really, really teach. So just take a moment to breathe in 4. Automatically taps into your parasympathetic nervous system. And I can guarantee for most people, unless you're in a really elevated state of fight or flight, you are going to feel that sense of calm as you move forward. And even if you have butterflies before your event, which most of us do, we wouldn't be human if we didn't feel those little pangs of, oh gosh, did I practice enough? Or what does my voice sound like today? Or what is the interviewer going to ask me? You wouldn't be human if you didn't have those thoughts, in my opinion.
Yeah, absolutely. A tip that I was told by a broadcaster who was teaching, and this was public speaking, but it works really well in virtual as well, is to pinch really hard and just let some of that energy focus into a specific spot. And you can't see it. It was like under a table or below, but it just helps with that nerves. And I've used that for a long time. I really appreciated
I love that.
it.
Well, you know, there's so many things that work for so many different people. Sometimes people really need photos of their loved ones or their pets in their environment while they're presenting. Some people need special candles. I mean, there's a million different things that we can do to work with you to help you calm your nerves.
Yeah. So Kathy, you've had the chance to pivot your career and be open to learning. So you've had some career time where things were more virtual, more, you know, not this same world that we're living in today. And so many business owners are also people that have had careers, and many of, you know, some companies have 5 different generations in them now, and they've got folks that have grown up and their world is virtual. It's like it's not even something extra. It is a key part of their world. Is there any advice that you have for leaders who are having to kind of accept that this wasn't a temporary change, that I've got to lean into this virtual hybrid world and how to successfully make that transition and get a little uncomfortable and move forward with this type of training or commitment to making this a permanent way that they do business with their team.
Well, Shellen, I guess all I would say for business owners is to be open to new information or be open to learning. It's not rocket science. It's what they call the brain science, but it's nothing that we haven't heard before, but putting it in practice and learning it or relearning it makes a huge difference. And also allowing the training for your employees so that they do a better job, which in turn creates a more positive atmosphere for them and more money for them, presumably more money, more income for the company, and maybe better, well run. But I guess the big thing is just really take that chance and learn about it. You don't have to do anything, by just learning about it and then making an educated decision as what you think would work best for your firm.
It's great advice. And I do want to make sure that everyone knows there's a QR code on the screen that will take you to Everything Webinar main website and see all of their trainings, some great blog articles, really valuable information. I will also put in the comments a discount code if you're interested in doing the virtual audit. And I did have a chance to do that. It was really, really helpful. I wish I had had the opportunity to do it 3 years ago. It would have saved me a lot of heartache. And the QR code's on the bottom of the screen there. And for anyone who is interested in connecting with you all to learn more, share what's going on with their own, professional life or their company, what's the best way for them to reach out and set up some time to just have, a casual conversation and see if there might be a good fit?
Go ahead. On the website, we have info at everythingwebinar.com. They can contact me or Kimberly. Our emails are just our names at everything.com. It's really easy just to reach out.
Perfect. And I know you're both on LinkedIn, right? And I am as well. So we're streaming there as well as other places. So certainly feel free to connect there as well. Kimberly, any other words of wisdom or last thoughts about connecting in with people that were interested in learning more?
Yes, well, we are on, I believe, most of the social platforms. Right. We actually have somebody that manages that for us. But I know that we are on Instagram, we're on Twitter, we are on Facebook. We're definitely more active on LinkedIn. But like Kathy said, just info at everythingwebinar.com, or you can log on to the website. You can create an account. Once we see that you have an account there, we will proactively reach out to you. And just thank you for the opportunity, Shellen. If you have not considered a virtual office audit, consider it now. Over 400 of these have been tested worldwide, and not one person has come back and said, I didn't learn anything. Guaranteed that you'll have an aha moment. Even if you're a professional broadcaster, I tested this with an NFL sports broadcaster, professional podcasters that have been presenting for years and years and years. And everybody has basically said the same thing. This is just that one central repository for learning that is 30 minutes and 7 steps. So give us the opportunity to earn your trust as well as your business.
Beautiful. Well, Kathy and Kimberly, thank you so much for joining me today. I really appreciate it. I learned something new every time I talk with either one of you. So I hope Kimberly, maybe we can woo you back to do some stage presence for our next follow-up.
Thank you so much.
Thank you all.